He was branded a terrorist at 17, just for tweeting a prayer. Zayn Malik just dropped the most personal lyrics of his career, finally revealing the racism and Islamophobia he endured as the only South Asian member of One Direction. For the first time ever, we're hearing the truth straight from him. Were you a Directioner back then? Did you notice the way Zayn was treated, or did it fly under the radar? Comment below if you remember the backlash he got just for celebrating Eid, and whether you think his bandmates should have done more. When Zayn Malik previewed his newest track on Instagram, fans weren't just surprised by the musical shift, they were shaken by the lyrics. Unlike anything he's released before, this track features a raw, poetic rap where Zayn confronts the racism he faced as the only brown member in a global boy band. He raps, "I worked hard in a white band and they still laughed at the Asian." The moment hit like a punch to the chest. And it wasn't just fans reacting. For many, it felt like the first time Zayn truly allowed the pain to bleed into the music. He's no longer trying to appeal. He's testifying. One lyric cracked open a decade of silence. Imagine being thrust into the spotlight at 17 and realizing you're the only brown person in a sea of white bandmates, managers, and fans. Zayn Malik's entire One Direction journey was colored by that isolation. South Asian fans knew it. They saw how he was tokenized, praised when he fit Western beauty ideals, criticized when he looked too Muslim. He was marketed as the mysterious bad boy, a stereotype that felt racially charged in hindsight. Zayn wasn't loud or rebellious. He was quiet, introspective, not vulnerability. Invisibility isn't always silent, it's scripted. The racism didn't stop at microaggressions. It turned violent. Zayn was vilified by tabloids and fans for simply being Muslim. A harmless Arabic tweet, branded jihadi, a peaceful Eid greeting, called propaganda. One viral rumor falsely accused him of being linked to 9/11, prompting Zayn to wear a shirt reading, "I am not a terrorist." Imagine that. A teenager on top of the world forced to defend his very identity to the people cheering for him. Fame gave him a stage. Racism made it a battlefield. Here's a question no one asked back then. Why was Zayn always the dangerous one? In a band where every other member was allowed to be goofy, flirty, or shy, Zayn, quiet and reserved, was labeled the brooding bad boy. Leather jackets, combat boots, smoky stares. But it wasn't just a style choice, it was branding. He's since admitted that, while he played along at first, it became deeply uncomfortable over time. The label wasn't just limiting, it was racialized. In an industry obsessed with palatability, Zayn was reduced to a stereotype because of his skin tone. He wasn't the bad boy, he was made to play one. If you want a textbook example of racial profiling disguised as humor, look no further than the infamous interview clip. Zayn, showing off a water gun tattoo, was met with thinly veiled suspicion from a snarky interviewer. What's the meaning behind that? A real gun? Everyone knew what he was implying. The room tensed, but only Louis muttered a quick correction. "It's a water gun," while the rest stayed silent. It was a blink and you miss it moment, unless you'd lived through that kind of interrogation yourself. For Zayn, this wasn't a joke. It was a message. You'll never be fully safe in this space. One moment, one question, and the mask slipped. Through all the abuse, what's most haunting is who didn't speak up. Zayn's bandmates, Harry, Lewis, Liam, and Niall, never publicly defended him when he was called a terrorist, mocked for his religion, or shamed for being brown. Not once. And fans noticed. The silence wasn't neutral. It was loud. It felt like abandonment. Whether they were afraid, indifferent, or simply blind to it, their inaction spoke volumes. Even now, years later, there's never been a real acknowledgement. No apology, no solidarity, just silence. Sometimes silence is the loudest betrayal. If you're still here, thank you. This matters. Take a second to hit the like button if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Don't forget to subscribe for more untold truths like this. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss a breakdown that speaks truth to power. When Zayn left One Direction in 2015, the headlines were brutal. He was painted as selfish, disloyal, even ungrateful. But no one asked, what was he walking away from? Fans dragged him relentlessly. His mental health was mocked, and when he tried to explain why he needed out, privacy, peace, a reset, he was met with disbelief. The truth is, his exit wasn't just about creative freedom, it was survival. Leaving meant risking everything, but staying meant swallowing who he was. He didn't walk out of One Direction, he escaped it. Years later, a different kind of conversation is happening among fans themselves, especially those who were teenagers during One Direction's prime. Some are realizing for the first time just how normalized the racism against Zayn was. The memes, the stereotypes, the silence. One viral video captured this perfectly. A former directioner rewatching old clips and admitting, "I had no idea how bad it was." We all laughed, and he was suffering. It's a rare moment of collective accountability, and it's powerful. Growth begins when you stop rewriting history and start owning it. Then came the shift. Zayn became a father, and something in him changed. In a rare podcast appearance, he said being a dad gave him a new reason to push through the fear. "I have to be an example for her," he shared. "I can't let anxiety stop me anymore." That clarity is woven into everything he does now, from his music to his mindset. Speaking out isn't just about the past anymore. It's about shaping the future for the next generation of brown kids growing up in a world that still doesn't always see them. For Zayn, fatherhood turned pain into purpose. In 2023, Zayn finally sat down for his first interview in 6 years, and the internet stopped to listen. On Call Her Daddy, he opened up about anxiety isolation and why he stayed silent for so long. It wasn't fear of the fans, it was fear of vulnerability. "I'm just a shy guy," he said plainly. But there was one thing that finally pushed him forward: his daughter. Zayn shared that becoming a dad helped him see past the fear. "I used to get anxiety just having a conversation," he said. "Now I do it for her." Healing begins when you stop hiding your voice. But let's not pretend speaking up is easy. Even now, the moment Zayn dropped lyrics about being laughed at in a white band, backlash rolled in. Some fans were more upset about the implication than the racism itself. Others accused him of playing victim. It's the same cycle that keeps marginalized voices quiet. Speak your truth, and they'll say you're bitter. Stay silent, and they'll say you were never mistreated. Zayn's breaking that loop. He's not naming names, he's naming systems. When you speak truth to power, expect the power to flinch. Zayn's story isn't just personal, it's systemic. In Western pop, South Asian representation is still almost non-existent. And when it does appear, it's often filtered through stereotypes or aesthetics that erase the culture itself. Zayn's success was groundbreaking, but it came at a price. He wasn't allowed to be brown and soft, brown and silly, brown and mainstream. He had to be marketable, palatable, controlled. That's the kind of quiet racism that doesn't yell, but cages. Visibility doesn't always mean freedom. For millions of South Asian fans, Zayn wasn't just a pop star. He was the only one. Seeing someone who looked like them on world stages, magazine covers, and sold-out tours meant everything. It told brown kids that they could be more than side characters, more than stereotypes. But what made Zayn's presence powerful was never just his fame. It was his quiet resistance. He didn't change who he was to be accepted. And now, years later, his words are opening doors he never got to walk through himself. Representation matters most when it refuses to shrink. Being famous is already a pressure cooker. Add racism and Islamophobia and you get a powder keg. Zayn didn't just have to be charming, he had to be careful. One wrong word, one cultural expression, and he'd be labeled a threat. He couldn't tweet a prayer without backlash, couldn't post about Eid without being accused of pushing Islam. Meanwhile, his bandmates were allowed to be political, messy, loud, without consequence. Zayn had to navigate his identity like a minefield. Fame gave him a voice, but not always the safety to use it. This is the hardest part to sit with. What if someone had just said something? A tweet, a comment, a show of solidarity? What if Harry, Niall, Lewis, or Liam had publicly stood beside him when he was called a terrorist at 17? Would it have changed the narrative? Maybe not everything, but maybe enough to remind him he wasn't alone. In the absence of words, there was pain. And in hindsight, the silence from those who claim to be brothers is what echoes loudest. Support isn't always loud, but silence always speaks. Zayn isn't chasing chart toppers anymore. He's building something deeper. His latest music isn't engineered for radio. It's raw, experimental, lyrical, and for the first time, it sounds like he's writing for himself. No label-imposed image, no bandmate, no walls, just truth. Fans who once begged him to go back to the 1D days are finally realizing those weren't happy years. This is Zayn's real debut. He's not the mysterious bad boy anymore. He's a man reclaiming his story. Art is powerful when it stops asking for permission. Zayn's story forces a hard look at how the music industry handles diversity. Representation isn't just casting one brown person in a group, it's creating space for them to thrive, to be seen fully, not just aesthetically. The labels, the media, even the fans, they all played a role in muting Zayn's identity, and he still made history. But imagine what he could have done with support, protection, freedom. The industry doesn't need more diversity hires. It needs structural change. Tokenism looks diverse. Equity feels different. So where do we go from here? If you love pop culture, you have power. You decide whose voices are uplifted, whose pain is validated. It starts with listening, not just to the music, but to the message. Support artists who speak their truth. Call out injustice, even when it's uncomfortable. And if you're part of a fandom, remember, you can love someone and hold them accountable. Zayn's story isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a call to do better. Change starts with the fans who dare to care. Zayn Malik didn't just survive One Direction, he outgrew it. He turned trauma into truth, silence into sound. And for the first time, the world is listening with clearer ears. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or misunderstood, in a space that claimed to embrace you, this story is for you. And it's not over. Tap the playlist on your screen to explore more stories about the artists rewriting pop culture from the margins and turning pain into power. This video is based on publicly available information and commentary. It is not professional advice. Please consult a qualified expert if needed.